At one point, I went out into my parents' hallway one evening and I picked up a book about the Virgin Mary. Mama Mary, wow! I had never heard about the Virgin Mary, ever. I had no idea who this person was. I read that whole book in one night. One night. I didn't know what was going on, and I had just miracles happening to me in that book about what was happening in my life. And you know what was happening, really? I was falling in love. I was being what I call, and this is crazy language, I was being romanced by God. And this is the turning point in the life of Father Don Calloway, a man who was once imprisoned, addicted, and wandering aimlessly for many years, a person who seemed beyond saving. Yet something changed. What made him turn his life around? Let's listen to his story. You know, when I was young, I didn't grow up in a Christian household of faith at all. As a result of that, my teenage years were just lived in pagan terms. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in heaven or hell. Those kinds of categories? Never. I was living just a crazy life, and at one point, if you know my story, you know this, because it's in book form, by the way, that you have here today. At one point, I was living in Japan with my family because my father was a military officer. In Japan, I caused so much trouble as an American teenager. You know what they did? I ran away in Japan, actually. You know what they did? After they captured me, they kicked me out of the country. Literally kicked me out. When I came back to the United States, I had to go to an institution to be locked up for a period of time so that I could try and get better. So I went to my first drug and alcohol rehabilitation center in Pennsylvania, but I got out and I got worse. I started doing all kinds of crazy things that I wasn't even doing in Japan. But you know what happened during that time? My mom had a radical conversion. My mom. Now I see many mothers out there, and I also see many Filipino women out there. You know what happened to my mom? My mom met a Filipino woman. And you know what happened? My mom got converted. You know, Filipino women. They're powerful, woo, let me tell you. Yeah, you know, I guarantee you, if all the Filipino women out there opened up your purse right now, you probably got stacks of novenas in your purse. This is standard issue for all Filipino women, right? This is what they do. Well, my mother helped me. She became a Catholic through this Filipino woman telling her about Jesus and Mary and the Pope and the Eucharist and the sacraments. And my mum fell in love with Catholicism. So when my mother came back to the States, they captured me. I was deported. I went to my first rehab, and so did my dad, and so did my brother. Well, you know what happened to me? I got worse. And I was living on the streets, basically. I was living a crazy, crazy life. I went to a rehabilitation center in Philadelphia for another 3 months. And then when I turned 18, I was down in Louisiana and I got thrown in jail. I'd already been in jail in Japan. Now I was in jail in the United States. Crazy stuff happening, you know, in my life. With all the drugs I was using and all the crazy stuff that was going on. And I went back to my parents' house after I got out of jail. And you know what they were doing? My parents were going to church every day. I thought they were crazy, right? I thought, wow, my parents are nuts. Who? You know, I wasn't used to that kind of stuff. And they tried to get me to go to church. I'm like, no way, I'm out of here. And I had nowhere to go. I ended up back at my parents' house and I had what I call the divine 2x4. I was at a serious crisis in my life. I mean, oh my gosh, I didn't know what to do. My life, I thought, was pretty much pointless. I had nowhere to turn. I had no hope. I had no desire, ambition, dreams, goals, or career options. I was just a long-haired hippie, you know, doing my own thing. At one point, I went out into my parents' hallway one evening, and I picked up a book about the Virgin Mary. Mama Mary, wow! I had never heard about the Virgin Mary, ever. I had no idea who this person was. I read that whole book in one night. one night, and I went the next day, and you know what I did? Of my own free will? I went and searched out and found a Catholic priest, and I talked to that Catholic priest. I told him things that, he was like, wow, you did what? Crazy things I was telling this guy. Then he invited me to attend Mass, just to sit in the back and just to watch. I didn't know what was going on, and I had just miracles happening to me in that book about what was happening in my life. And you know what was happening, really? I was falling in love. I was being what I call, and this is crazy language, I was being romanced by God. I really was. And I found myself just falling in love with Jesus and Mary and the church. And you know what happened that day in that church? Many things. Guess who was in that church when I first walked into that church? God set it up this way. Women, right? It only took one for my mum to convert, right? But if you get a group of 5 Filipino women, you're in big trouble, right? They're going to put scapulars on you. They're going to pray over you. You're going to be praying the Rosary before you know it, right? Sure enough, they taught me how to pray the Rosary. They gave me all these medals of saints, and they gave me scapulars, right? It said, "He who dies wearing this shall not suffer eternal fire." I'm like, awesome. Kissed it, put it on. These Filipino women gave me brown, red, green, and blue scapulars. I had every kind of scapular known to man around my neck, right? And they taught me how to pray. They taught me how to be devoted. They taught me how to do the stations of the cross and all of that. And then I began my own process of becoming Catholic. And it took many months. I started to go to church every day. And you know how radical it was for me? This is radical behavior for a white boy, okay? I was at church before, in the morning, before the Filipinos. That's radical stuff, right? So I'm there and I'm just loving this. I'm loving this. I know that Jesus is really in the Eucharist. I'm falling more and more in love. And you know what these Filipino women kept doing to me? They kept coming up to me. Now, I wasn't even Catholic yet, okay? Keep that in mind. They were coming up to me and they were saying, "You should become a father. You should become a Catholic priest. The young people need people like you. We need a holy, holy priest." I'm like, what? I'm like, oh no, I'm like, thank you, but I can't do that. I can't do that, I'm a great sinner. I couldn't be a priest. And they said, okay, but you're better now. I said, oh yeah, I'm free. I know the truth and it's wonderful. But Filipino women, they're funny. They're so funny. They're persistent. They don't give up, right? So this one Filipino woman, she said, okay, so if you don't become a father, I have a beautiful daughter. What, right? Oh no, I've been down that road. I need to focus. I need to pray, right? So I just kept praying to Jesus and Mary. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to get married? It'd be wonderful to have a Filipino wife and have tons of Catholic children and raise a Catholic family. That'd be fantastic, right? But what do you want me to do, heaven? What are you asking of me now that you've given me my life back? And I heard an invitation to be a priest and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you talking to me? I mean, you know me, you know all the crazy things I've done. That's going to take like a lot of power to make me a priest. And as I kept praying, I just felt I couldn't resist this. I couldn't. And I didn't have peace when I tried not to do it, And so I just kept praying about it. And I started to talk to vocation directors. Now, remember, I'm not even Catholic yet, right? So I'm still becoming Catholic and I'm already thinking, so I'm praying about this. And then I become a Catholic and then I go and visit a religious community. You know who it was? These guys here who run the National Shrine of Divine Mercy. I went to their house in Washington, D.C., and I met these guys and they were awesome. They loved Mama Mary. They loved Our Lady so much. Around the dinner table, they talked about Our Lady and they talked about the Eucharist. They talked about everything to me. And I was like, wow, man, it would be a privilege to be a part of you guys. You guys are awesome. And I was like, sign me up. But they said, oh, well, we got to pray about it if we want to let you enter. And I said, okay, well, pray about it because I'm ready, And they prayed about it, and you know what they did? They said I could join. And so almost 20 years ago, I had to start all over again and relearn everything, go to college, go to seminary and all of that. And then 10 years ago, by the grace of God and His mercy, right here in this chapel at the shrine, May 31st, 2003, I was ordained to the holy priesthood. Thanks be to God, and thanks to the prayers of so many people who pray, Lord, give us priests. We need priests, right? I'm the last person that anyone would expect. Can't believe it. They're like, I know where you are a priest. And I'm like, tell me about it, brother. I can't believe I'm doing this. But God has been so good to me, right? And I want to thank so many of you for so many of the prayers that you pray. And to my Filipino friends, I say, Salamat for all your prayers. It's amazing what God is doing in our times. And remember, as I said at the beginning of this talk, for those who don't like the church, don't go to church, or wouldn't come to something like this, maybe it's your spouse, your children, don't give up hope, okay? You pray those rosaries. Those rosaries, they have power. I see this in my own life. Those sacrifices that you make, they have a lot of power. That's amazing. And you know what heaven has now given to us and what we're going to be celebrating today in a huge way. And it only takes like 5 to 7 minutes, right? That's amazing. We have the Rosary and the Divine Mercy Chaplet. It's like the 1-2 punch in the spiritual life. It really is. So when you're praying for your family members and you're praying for conversions and you're praying for that spiritual kick in the pants, you're praying for the divine 2x4 to come into your family's life. Keep that in mind as you pray, because sometimes I know it can be difficult. You say, I've been praying for years, Father, when are they going to change? Remember this, when my mother became Catholic and became very devout, I got worse, right? Not because she became Catholic, but because now she could deal with it. She had the resources at her fingertips in the sacraments and the treasures of the church to deal with her delinquent son, me, and the nightmare that I put her through. You know what I call my mum now, my Monica, my Saint Monica, right? She is awesome. I love my mum. And now I pray the rosary with my mum. I pray the chaplet with my mum. I bless my mum. It's crazy, right? It's incredible what God can do. So don't give up hope. As long as you've got a pulse, you've got hope. As crazy as this world is, and it is, God has not abandoned us. He hasn't abandoned you and your marriage or your children, as strange as they may be. Right, He hasn't. He's in love with them. He loves them more than you do, and you know what He often does? He wants your cooperation, your broken heart, and your emotions that hurt so many times in these relationships. And you know what He's going to do with your heart? He's going to squeeze every drop of love that He can out of it so that He can make you a saint. And in that process, you know what He's doing? This is my analogy. He's taking like all of your tears and all of your pain, and He's filling them like a spiritual bucket. And in His time, He's going to take all of that and He's just going to dump it on your children and on your spouse, because that's how He works. He's got treasures beyond your wildest imagination. It's in many ways the worst of times, but it's the best of times. We live in an era of Marian apparitions. We live in the era of divine. I bet he's going to say some profound stuff. He already did. Brother Chris tells me, yeah, boy, can't wait to read this stuff. This is amazing. My friends, open up your hearts today to all the graces and mercies that God wants to give you, your family, and our entire world. May God bless you, my friends, all the days of your life. Amen. So, what does Don's story tell us about our own paths? Are we really as stuck as we think, or is there a deeper power waiting to awaken us? Maybe it's time we stop judging others based on their past, and instead began to see the possibility of change in every person. Don Calloway's story is proof that transformation isn't just for the lucky or the deserving. It's for anyone who's willing to fight for it. If his story has inspired you, remember, you are never too far gone to make a difference in your own life. If you found this story moving and would like to hear more about real-life transformations, spiritual journeys, and stories of hope, don't forget to subscribe to Compatibility World. Join us as we explore the deeper connections that shape our lives and our destinies. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more inspiring stories that remind us of the power of change.